What's his secret? So this guy went to work, and here was his conclusion. Well, when they put on a position, if they're buying something, they generally get a very good price. Maybe the low of the day if they're buying, maybe the high of the day if they're selling. But most of the time, they're not putting on positions. They stick with the position. That accounts, he said, for maybe 10% of their profits. They claim they have T-bills sometimes, and so was interest. But 80% of the profits was a complete mystery. It was a complete mystery. Now, what they did was, let's see, they would put on a big position, according to the tickets, with stocks which would, the collection of which would be approximately the S&P. And then they would buy a put or a call to protect themselves against outside moves. Well, from what we understood, they had a huge amount of money under management. So you would think when they put on these puts or calls or whatever it was, it would move the market actually in those things. But we could see no evidence of that. They said they were putting on these puts and calls, but if you look at the put and call market, there was no evidence of any such activity. So I thought, well, let's get out of this thing. Even Medallion had a little bit invested in it. Medallion had extra cash at that time, and we had put it with me. So we sold it, and then nothing happened. And several years went by. One of my relatives called me and said, you know, do you still like Madoff? And I said, well, I can't tell you to take your money out of it because he's been going for a long time and he keeps on going and he must know something. I said, I took my money out, but I couldn't advise someone to take their money out. It never dawned on me that it was a Ponzi scheme. I didn't know what the heck he was doing, but I just didn't like the looks of it. So we couldn't understand what he was doing. So that's why we got out. 5 years later, the crap hit the fan and he was outed. And it was, well, everyone knows what happened next. So, and actually they looked back 6 years for any profits that you may have made. So our foundation had to give back some money to people who had lost it. But it was just the craziest thing in the world. Madoff. So
the irony is that the fake track record that Madoff posted was actually not as good as the real track record the Medallion Fund.
That's true. That's true.
So,
well, it was pretty steady. I have to say that it was pretty steady. But it was, and then I don't know, the SEC started investigating us because some people had said, look, these Renaissance people, we don't know what they do either, because of course no one knew exactly what Madoff did. And of course we didn't tell people what we were doing. They couldn't see our portfolio, they couldn't see anything. By that time, I think we had already given all the money back to the investors. So I could say, well, look, we can't be doing anything wrong because it's all our own money. So we've already given back all the money to the investors. But they did study us and work us over for a while, and of course they couldn't find anything bad. And then they went home.
Right.
But it was as a result of Madoff that we were so examined by the SEC.
Right. So right around that time, of course, was the financial crisis, and that probably precipitated Madoff's unraveling. What do you make of the financial crisis and the aftermath?
Are you talking about 2008?
Yeah.
Well, it should never have happened. It should never have happened. There were these mortgage-backed securities had been created. They'd always existed, mortgage-backed securities, but very fancy ones were getting created. And they had all kinds of this and that and so on and so forth. And in the old days, the rating agencies, their customers were the buyers of bonds, the bond rating agencies. So they wanted to do right by their customers. But at a certain point, and you get a report every week or a newsletter or something like that. But with the internet coming along, people were sharing this who didn't subscribe. So the rating agencies decided, okay, we're not going to charge the buyers of the bonds. We're going to charge the sellers of the bonds. Now, if you think about it, that's a conflict of interest because they really want to get the bond, have the bonds sold. So maybe they won't be so tough in rating them. And that's what happened. The stuff was sold, which you'd have to be a moron, and stamped AAA. And you know, people were getting mortgages, no docs. You'd walk in, you'd get a mortgage. How much money do you have? Oh, I have $100,000. And how much money do you make? Oh, I make $200,000. Okay, fine, we'll give you this much of a mortgage. Well, they didn't even ask for documents in many cases, or your income tax forms. And why were the banks being so lenient? Because they could sell them to people who would package up these mortgages and put them, they ultimately end up as a mortgage-backed security, stamped AA, AAA. So everything had just become very lax. And Bear Stearns, for example, which was a firm that we had always had great confidence in. They were very conservative outfit. They almost went down the drain because of this. Fortunately, they didn't. We had money with them, and as soon as it looked like they were going to be in trouble, we bailed out and got out 3 days before they folded. Then we were working with Lehman Brothers. We had a lot of money with Lehman Brothers.